So, something has been pulling at the back of my mind lately, and this is what the video today is about. We are going to be going over kind of the lack of gameplay in video games for just crafting. Crafting has been with us for quite a while now, through pretty much any of the RPGs, old and new, to survival games more currently. Survival games are probably one of the more popular versions of crafting in video games at the moment. And all of them feel about the same level of fleshed out. You gather resources, you process the resources into the material or item that you are looking to make, and then at that point on, you go out into the world and now you have something new. To me, crafting is like a huge misstep in game development. It's such, at this point, kind of a tacked on feature that I think developers kind of add to kind of appease the masses, It's just like, well, we'll add crafting and, they'll be able to make stuff, but in reality, the gameplay that it adds, or at least the process that you go through, is really shallow. And so, what I'm thinking is missing, or at least a lot of people are probably, hopefully, agreeing with me, is kind of this depth of mechanics when you're talking about crafting. And so, depth of mechanics is kind of a word that people have been throwing around lately, and I don't really want to, use it incorrectly. And so, basically, when someone says, oh, it's a very shallow gameplay experience, or it's lacking depth, not many people can tag down exactly what that means. And for me, depth of mechanics really come down to three things. So it's gonna have to be immersive. It's going to have gameplay attached to it, and then also it has to have a good user interface to achieve what we're looking for. And so those are kind of the three pillars, in my opinion, for depth of mechanics. I'm sure you guys have different variations, or maybe your own usage of the term. So I would like to hear from you guys down below in the comments what you think depth of mechanics really is, because I think this is something we as a gaming community need to nail down soon, because we're using this word, and I don't think the developers and the community kind of are on the same page as to what that entails. And so for me, immersion is probably the main driving factor for depth. So when you are immersed in the world, you're not thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about, well, does this make sense or not? Or is this fun or not? Because you're just in the moment, you're in the world, you feel like you're part of it, And even immersion is maybe a little hot topic for some people. Some people might call it, immersion is strictly realism. And then some people will say immersion is just simply the fall away of everything else around you. Me, I just think immersion is just translates to believability. And so if it fits the world that we are in, and it makes sense to the confines of how the world operates, that's immersion. It's realism to a sense, but it's not realism in the sense of us, because you could be in a fantasy world with completely different laws of physics or nature, but it's believable in that setting. So that's what I'm talking about for immersion. Right now, crafting doesn't really follow any sort of rules for immersion. We're using a lot of these old systems for crafting or even inventory management that breaks the user from the game world, and then also takes them out and kind of reminds them that, hey, you're playing a video game right now. You're not in this actual fantasy world. We're using very gamey elements to, show you guys these steps and tools that you can do to craft these items, but your character is not really reflecting that very well. For example, if you take World of Warcraft, and maybe the old crafting animations, or even the current crafting animations, you don't know what they're doing. Like, you can craft a potion, and they're just rubbing their hands together for all you know. Or rubbing two pots together. Or basically clapping. Like immersion is so important to me with crafting that I feel like pretty much every game has fallen short. There's some few outliers that it makes sense in. But I think they could still do it better in a little bit more of an immersive way. The second pillar of kind of depth of mechanics for me, of course, is the gameplay. Right now, crafting to me has no gameplay. It is seriously a time sink and a means to an end. It's not, you don't do anything. There's nothing skill based involved. You're not, mastering some type of skill to make an item. You're just hitting a button. Now that you have the resources, and here's your item granted to you. In some settings, that's okay, like futuristic, you can hit a button, and maybe a machine will make it, but I think there should be an animation involved with that, not just a little sliding bar, or anything that mundane, I think it needs to be a little bit more involved. So, for example, I prefer fantasy over sci-fi, so when I do blacksmithing in a fantasy game, it's not very fun. I want it to be fun. Blacksmithing to me is such a unique kind of trade skill that I think it should be challenging and interesting to craft items that never existed in the game world before. And yet, all I do is open a menu, select what I want to craft after I have the materials, watch a little bar progress across my screen, and there I have it. The only thing I invested into this item is time. I didn't invest hard work, because to me, no matter, you can invest unlimited amounts of time, but does that necessarily mean hard work? No, that just means time. There's not a skill level there that I want to enjoy. Probably the only one that I really enjoy, even though it has some flaws in it, is probably the Terra Firma Craft mod for Minecraft, which you guys have seen on my channel a while ago. And the blacksmithing system there, it has gameplay. There's stuff to consider. There's of course your skill in blacksmithing on your character, but that only gives you bonuses. Everyone can do blacksmithing in all the recipes from day one. But the skill increases the effects. So I like that. And then also the fact that I'm going to walk you through how to do blacksmithing in Terra Firma Craft, because I think it's very interesting. You smelt the iron down into an ingot. Okay, that's it's time consuming. You sit it in a furnace and heat it up, and then smelt the ore down, and then you pour it into the mold. Okay, these are steps. These are actual items in the game that you get to interact with, and then once you have it in the mold, you get a bar. Now you have a bar of that ingot that you took time, to get through cave-ins and all these other things that could possibly happen to you. You have this bar, and now you need to heat it up in a forge. But if you heat it up too much, it's going to melt back into a molten state, which is bad. If you don't heat it up enough, you're not going to be able to work the metal on an anvil. And so you have to watch the heat of the actual metal, see it go into its optimum crafting range, take it out really quick, throw it on an anvil, and then you're brought up with, I don't want to say mini game, but in this case it essentially is a little mini game of, hey, you have to make these arrows match, and you have to work the metal in some way and finish it with some sort of combination of hits, and then out comes your item. And initially, you don't know what you're doing. You're just hammering away on this thing. It cools down. You have to heat it back up again and try again. And you're just trying this trial and error process of just understanding how the mechanic works to be able to get your result. And then after you understand that and do it a couple times, you can actually create that item fairly consistently. It might take 1 or 2 tries, but the initial 10 times, that it took, you feel accomplished in that. And you feel like, you actually did something that mattered. And so for me, that's gameplay. That is something you invest more than time. You're actually thinking about what you're doing than just simply going out and farming a material. I mean, it takes a little bit more thought process. So, moving on from gameplay, we pretty much come straight to our user interface. And user interface is a big one. In fact, that's probably the most challenging aspect for a crafting system, period. The other two, you can make something fun, but if people don't understand what to do, it's going to be rough. You're going to get a lot of people being angry. You're going to get a lot of people being upset because they're very lost and confused, and it's not presented in a clear, straightforward manner. Now, what you'll see a lot of is 2D crafting menus. These 2D representations to convey information in a very efficient way, and that's great. You know, for ease of access, that is wonderful. But it's also starting to get a little boring for me. Like, I want to be able to interact with the world and not a 2D menu. Not something gamey, but the world. I want to be able to go up to an anvil and craft a sword without a menu popping up. Now, there might be interesting ways to do that, maybe. Like, maybe you have to go to a table with all your blueprints out and maybe select a blueprint by selecting the right scroll or something. And now you have that scroll equipped, in essence. And you go to an anvil and you use the left and mouse buttons to actually interact with the anvil to hit the item in certain combination of hits. And maybe the faster you do it and the better and more maybe rhythmic you do it, a better item might pop out. You know? But it essentially does the same thing as opening up a menu and crafting the item. You know, I think Minecraft might have been a little detrimental for crafting. Especially with survival games. It kind of introduced this crafting table element where you throw your resources in and you pop out your item. Which was going to be a step in the right direction over just using UI interfaces. But I feel like everyone was so obsessed with the success of Minecraft that everyone just stopped there. And they stopped moving on to maybe a UI-less kind of system, or maybe the UI is embedded into the world for sci-fi, where you select what you want to build using the actual panel in the freaking world. Like, I don't know why they can't do that. To me. I mean, I'm not a game developer, and maybe it's harder than I'm making it out to be, but for me, crafting, if people enjoy crafting as much as they say they do, they should really not be pleased with the current state of it. Like, if you look at any of the survival games out there right now, or any of the MMOs, it's the exact same thing. In fact, some cases it might go backwards. And I'm not happy about that. I mean, I'm a creative person, and I enjoy the creative process, and that is, in my opinion, just a lazy way to get around it. There's some games that really focus on some interesting mechanics, and in my opinion, get held back by just the simple act of crafting. So, anyways, I think that's about as much as I want to ramble today. This has been kind of, as I said, on the back of my mind, and I really wanted to get it out there and hear your guys' opinions on crafting and where you think it's going, because I don't see it improving in any major form. Kingdom Come Deliverance shows some promise for sure, you know, using the interface there. I think that's a pretty cool system. Astroneer, for your sci-fi fans, I think that has a really cool system where your UI elements are kind of embedded into the game world. I think those are step forwards. So there is some hope for crafting in video games, but I think most games will take the easy route and basically disappoint me going forward. So, yeah. I mean, and I also don't think these are easy challenges to overcome. I want to stress that enough. I'm not trying to make light of game developers taking time to make a crafting system, because it's all these items that you have to do, and it's just challenging. So, yeah, it's just different. Anyways, feel free to subscribe if you want to hear more of this. I'm thinking about doing maybe more of these kind of talky things a little bit more often. I think that they're a little bit more interesting than just straight gameplay all the time. Hit that like button so I know you guys enjoy this stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again real soon.